You saw my most anticipated. Now do these books meet my expectations? Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, bringing you my top 10 comics of the week, and this is for the week of 12/5/18. This is the brand new series that crosses over with my top 10 most anticipated comics. That's right, guys. Every Sunday night, you guys get to see my top 10 most anticipated comics of the week. Now, every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you'll get to see how those comics stacked up. Did they meet my expectations? Well, you'll find out right here on this video, and we'll talk about it here. Alright, so without further ado, guys, let's talk about my top 10 comics of the week. Alright, so coming in at number 10, this goes to Marvel Knights. This is issue number 3. Now, on my most anticipated comics, this book was number 4 on my list. So this dropped quite a bit, okay? So when it comes to Marvel Knights issue number 3, this book was okay, alright? It was a good story, however, it seemed to halt the main story. Because in this issue, we had to learn about one of the main characters in here, which was the Punisher, Frank Castle. We got to see a glimpse of this life that he actually leads and the struggles that he's actually going through when it comes to him struggling with what his life was in the past. This was a quite interesting issue. I liked it. It was fun. However, again, it halted the main story, and I thought that the artwork wasn't as strong in this issue either. It was just a little heavy on the inks and whatnot. And we still haven't found out where the hell Black Panther is and how they're going to recruit him on this team. Again, I like the other issues better. This was good, but it wasn't bad either. But it didn't meet my high expectations like it did how I thought it was going to be. Alright, so moving on. We're going to move on to my number 9 book of the week. And that goes to XMen Exterminating. This is issue 1. This is the one-shot. This book originally was on number 6 on my most anticipated comic of the week, and so this fell 3 spots. Now, this book was okay too. There was a backup story in this issue, which I thought was much better, because we got to learn about Scott Summers and Jean Grey on how they first had baby Cable, and how they didn't work as a family unit at first. The artwork in this first story was pretty good, but it wasn't great. And what it suffered from was good character facial expressions. When Hope Summers was in pain of the loss of her father, I felt like those facial expressions weren't convincing enough. They didn't fit the panel. It felt like she was being more bratty than she was being sad. We never actually see her cry. We just seem to have her whine at times. There was some good character interactions in here with Cable. And the whole point with Hope was she was supposed to get rid of all the weapons, cache, and whatnot, and destroy all his little hideouts, okay? And at the end of the day, you saw her actually try to get a time machine to go back and obviously prevent the past from happening, and Jean Grey actually said you can't do that, that's not the right thing to do, and that was basically it. The book was okay. It was fine. It was there. Was it worth the $5? I don't really think it was worth the $5. I thought it would be a much more impactful story and maybe set things up for Hope Summers to come back on a more regular basis when it came to the Exterminated book. Alright, so moving on to number 8. And my number 8 comic book of the week goes to Red Hood The Outlaw. This is issue 29. This book fell even. It was number 8 on my most anticipated comics, and it fell right there in that same spot. I wasn't expecting a ton out of this book. I thought it was okay. There was these crazy Solomon Grundy-like creatures that Kate and Jason were actually fighting in the book, and I was right. they're actually creatures from his DNA, okay? And so what happens in this book is we wind up seeing a cool team up with Kate and Jason. And we got to see some cool character interactions between the two characters on how Jason can always maybe be okay with Batman, try to make up with Batman. And he's kind of like, well, you know what? I can't because I actually tried to kill someone, and he's not okay with that. So you get to see this mission in progress about them trying to go to this mansion to defeat this, what they call is this pie lady, to stop these Solomon Grundy-like creatures from, I guess, being produced and whatnot. And Jason is successful. He stops the lady. And the only thing we find out is that these creatures are being birthed out of Mexico and whatnot, or the South. Yeah, it's in Mexico. And so by the time we get to the end of the issue, we wound up seeing Renee, Kate, and Jason go on a ride together to the South. Is this the new Red Hood Outlaw? I don't know. We'll see. Overall, the book was pretty good. It was fun. It didn't blow me out of the water. Maybe a little bit of a weaker storyline when it comes to Red Hood Outlaw in recent issues, but it's still a much improved series, and I'm still looking forward on where Jason is going forward. All right, so next, coming in at number 7, guys. This book also met me right where I needed it to, and this was West Coast Avengers issue 5. This was a fun book. We get to see a new story arc. So if you're looking to jump on board with this book right now. This book has good character interactions. It's got bright colors, fun artwork, crazy villains like by the name of Gridlock. I thought this was a funny moment in the actual book as they start battling this guy and they take him out with like one arrow. But the cool thing that Kelly Thompson is she's trying to get the reader to know these characters, these teams, to get in more depth with them, so you can kind of relate to them. So what happens in this book is they go to this creepy carnival or whatever it is where Madame Mask could possibly be, and what happens is they get sent off into pairs, and they wind up learning about each other in the book. And so we get to see obviously interactions and more relationship building between Quentin and Gwenpool. We get to see a little bit more with Hawkeye and Chavez, and we get to see a little bit a little bit more about what's his name, Kate's boyfriend and whatnot. So we get to see a little bit more character development. And then by the time we get to the end of this issue, we get to see actually Kate reunite with her mom, which I thought was kind of interesting too. So that made for a quite interesting story, and I liked it. Is it top-notch comic? No. But I think if you like these characters and you're looking for something different, I think this is the book to get. Alright, so moving on in the list, we're going to move on to number 6. And number 6 goes to Batman issue 60. This book met my expectations. Actually, it exceeded my expectations. This was actually number 10 on my most anticipated, and in this issue we wind up getting to see Batman, who goes absolutely AWOL because he's trying to find out answers about what the hell is going on with Bane. Okay, so he goes to all the villains that stayed in Arkham, and he's literally trying to beat the shit out of them to get all that information out of them. Commissioner Gordon is actually in awe. He doesn't know what to say or think that Batman is doing all these crazy things by throwing off his villains off of buildings, by practically punching them to death, and it's just quite interesting story. The artwork is a little bit different in this book. It makes you feel like it's an older style of Batman, and by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book, the person that could be doing all these things may not necessarily be Batman, but we're not really sure, because at the end of this book we wind up seeing Thomas Wayne show up, and he shows up in the Bat costume. So I don't know if he was posing as his son, or if it is Batman doing all these things because he's just trying to find out if Bane is faking all this stuff that's going on. I don't know. But this last page made for a quite interesting cliffhanger, and that's why this wound up finishing higher on my list this week. So Batman made for a fun issue. Alright, so coming in at number 5, we're on our top 5 now, goes to Die, issue number 1. Now, this book on my most anticipated was actually number 2, and this fell a few spots. It didn't meet my expectations quite as much because the book is a lot of setup. It's a $3.99 book, you get 40 pages out of it, and what happens is you're doing a lot of setup. You're building the characters. And as the reader, you're getting to learn these characters, okay, as kids, all right? But the problem is with this book is that this book flash forwards 16 years or so many years into the future, and what happens is now you got to learn them as adults. And they look different, and they act a little different, and so as a new reader, you were still getting to learn them as kids, but now you also got to learn them as adults, and you got to learn about what happened with their story. And their story is quite interesting. They went on to this birthday party. One of their friends came up with this Dungeons and Dragons game type of thing where they all become these warriors and whatnot. And what happens is that they've gone missing for 2 years. And then all of a sudden they come back and they can't say what has happened to them. Or obviously something bad is going to happen. So we flash forward into the future when these characters are going through their midlife crisis and they really don't have much to show. And based off of the events that happened to them and how it hurt other people is really affecting their relationships and things like that. So when one of the kids or adults now finds a die that shows up at the doorstep all bloodied, they wind up going back to the place that they came from. And this is like a Dungeons and Dragons type of comic book, because at the end of this issue, you wind up finding out they go to this different realm or different place that's shaped like a die, and they become these Dungeons and Dragon-like creatures or people or whatever they are. And it made for a quite interesting story. Really well told. But again, it's a lot to take in, and you might have to read it a couple of times. And even though I like the artwork, and it's a very interesting style of artwork, I'm curious to see if it will lack certain detail in the storytelling. So we'll see how this pans out, but I'm looking forward to more issues. And definitely recommend it if you're looking for something different. Alright, so coming in at number 4, this goes to the Immortal Hulk. This is issue 10. This book was my originally number 5. So even though it was my number 5, it exceeded my expectations by 1 slot. And I really like this book. It gets better with every read. It's just a horrific type of book, and I love the storytelling. So we get to see this Alpha Flight looking for Banner. We get to see this other people that are looking for Banner to try to capture him and whatnot. And in the last issue, we wind up getting to see Red Hulk and Immortal Hulk doing battle. Okay? And something seriously is going on here with Absorbing Man. Okay, he's absorbed so much gamma radiation. He's in this whole other world. He doesn't know what's going on. His spine is coming from him. You think he's going to die. I mean, the Hulk does this crazy-ass battle with him. He rips out his freaking spine. He throws him out. And we get to see that the soldiers are actually going to try to take out Bruce. You know, they try to shoot him, try to take him out. But they don't do it. Like, Immortal Hulk just can't die. That's why he's called Immortal Hulk. So you can shoot him in the gut, you can shoot him in the freaking eyeballs, you can absorb his gamma radiation, but the dude doesn't die. But what happens is when everyone's trying to capture him and all this chaos is going on, Absorbing Man is going to this place. He's going to the original testing site where the original bomb went off. And what happens is he's absorbed all this gamma radiation from Hulk that he is opening up this weird ass doorway. He like explodes. He's absorbing the gamma radiation. So he created this door, this gamma door, that brings everybody to this whole other dimension, which is hell. And this is what it looks like. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Because at the end, Hulk goes, welcome to hell. And so the Hulk was trying to prevent the Absorbing Man from doing this. That's what he was trying to do. It's such a weird and different direction from what I've seen from Hulk over the years. But I love it. It's so awesome. It's so much fun, you know? It's like, okay, so now the Earth is in hell. How are we going to get out of hell? How are we going to stop this from, you know, happening or going forward or whatnot? It just has me intrigued every issue. It's so different. I loved it. Artwork is superb in the book. All right, so moving on to number 3. My number 3 book of the week goes to The Walking Dead, issue 186. This book was good, and this book hasn't been this good in a long time. The Walking Dead was originally anticipated at number 9, okay? And this finished at number 3 for me. This was a really good book as well, because as I said, Rick is on the fence about what to do with the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is this huge community that is bigger than anything else that they've ever seen. But the community is just a bit off, okay? And so Dwight is working with Rick, and Michonne is working with Rick, and they're both jabbering in his ear, we should do this to get these people right. And Dwight's like, no, I can see right through the bullshit. They're pulling, you know, the wool over your eyes and this and that. And so throughout this issue, we get to see this whole confrontation happen. And the next thing we wind up seeing is that Michonne brings in the governor of the community and to come in the talks, and Dwight's like, why did you bring her here? And he holds a gun to her forehead, okay? And the next thing we wind up seeing is he's like, I'm going to shoot you right in your face. No one freaking do anything or I'm going to shoot you. And so Rick is caught between a rock and a hard place, and he winds up shooting Dwight right in the head. And you're like, oh shit! And he freaking dies, and he's bleeding on the floor. And you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. And Rick is pissed off at Michonne because she put him in this place. They're all over each other. They don't know what to do, and they don't know what side to be on. And he thinks Michonne now is on the wrong side. And oh my god, this book just got like The Walking Dead again. It got good. So happy that we finally got a payoff issue that was so long in the making. Really good. I'm happy it made my top 3 this week. I can't wait to see what happens in the next issue. Alright, so let's move on, guys, to number 2. What will be number 2 and what will be number 1? Well, my number 2 comic of the week goes to Shazam, issue 1. Woo! Man! So if you guys watched my most anticipated, you might know what my number 1 book is. Shazam originally was my number 1 most anticipated book. This fell to number 2, but I'm not taking anything away from this book. It's just what story I seem to like. I was just on the fence between the 2 books. This book was $4.99. You get 40 pages with this book. The artwork is really nice in this issue. I loved all the characters in this book. I mean, look at them here. They look gorgeous. The colors pop. And we get to see a story. We get to see the story of about everything that happened in the past, about how Billy got his powers, on how family is important. And I love how this book is going to focus on the family. I think that is what's really cool. And we get to see Billy's adopted family and all his family members, on how they all change into heroes and whatnot, into the Shazam family. And then you get to see them as kids, as they live in their foster home, and you can see that they're so excited about being, you know, being the Shazam family or being part of the Shazam and whatnot, and coming up with like a team name, which I thought is absolutely hilarious. The facial expressions are kind of weird at times. They just don't seem like they fit in certain places. Like, we're like super excited while eating, eating breakfast or whatnot, and but nevertheless, it was still a lot of fun, and I love seeing these young kids get excited about something, about being heroes and whatnot. So it was just a good issue. It was really, really good, and they're trying to discover all the secrets about the stones and all the places and the magic lands, and again, really solid book. But by the time you wind up getting to the end of this first story, we wind up seeing that Billy's father comes to the door. So is it really his father? Don't know. We'll see. But it made for a fun issue. And then you get the backup story about Mary. So you learn about her back history. And I'm hoping that all of these first issues of Shazam touch on each of the kids, so you know where they actually came from. But you see where she came from, her broken family, how her family abused her mentally and physically. And the artwork was kind of cool here because it was this like anime style of artwork. I thought that was quite nice. And we got to see her go into the foster home and how she interacted with her new brothers and whatnot. So I thought this was really a lot of fun, and we got to see, again, them teaming up as well in the book. So it was cool. Again, still learning all the characters. I'm not really familiar with Shazam. I did not read much of the character at all when I was younger. So this is my introduction to the character. So again, I still have to learn all the characters, but I thought it was a great story. And I think if Jeff Johns can tell a story, it's going to be this one. All right, so what got number one this week? What was my number one comic? And that went to not Shazam, but to Venom. This is issue 9. This book was solid this week. This kicked off a new story arc. Donny Cates is the writer, and I'm telling you, he's doing such a bang-up job on this book, man. I didn't know where to go after this whole Canal storyline, okay? And what's going to happen to Eddie Brock. So Eddie is broken. He doesn't know what to do with him being by himself. He still has the symbiote, but it's just lobotomized. It has no real thought process. It doesn't speak to him. It's just there. And we get to see him driving on a train. And the narration by him was absolutely brilliant. And Ryan Stegman's back on the artwork. So the facial expressions, the darkness, the grittiness of what you expect from Venom is all there. It is perfectly done. And so what happens is he winds up going to his old house. And it's funny how Brock treats his symbiote now. He treats it like a dog. He walks it. It looks like a pit bull. And he walks it around, and it's just like his dog, okay? And so you get to see this back history, this backstory a little bit on his childhood, of course, on how his father beat him and things like that. And we know this from the previous series and whatnot. But he goes to his father because he wants to make peace with him, okay? And what happens is he knocks on the door, and his father wants absolutely nothing to do with him. After everybody was lost in his family, he says, Eddie Brock in the issue, that my, sister died, this person died, my mother died, death is in our family, we're dark, and all I have is my father, and I want to make peace with him. And he tries to, and his father wants nothing to do with him. And it's such a sad, sad story. It really is. You can feel the pain on Eddie Brock's face, okay? And again, this goes back to XMen Exterminating, where the right facial expressions fit the story. You feel it in this book. You don't feel it in the Cable book or in that book. This, you feel it, okay? So his dad wants nothing to do with him. He even jacks him in the face to get him out of the way. And he goes, please, don't tell me I'm not your son. At least acknowledge me as your son. And what happens is the symbiote winds up going apeshit on his father. And he winds up he winds up going to eat his father, and and Eddie Brock can't control his symbiote. It's something that it's completely gone. It's completely lost. And so what happens is this random kid winds up coming down the stairs, and he's like, "Dad?" And Eddie is kind of like, "Who the hell are you? Who are you?" You know? And so he winds up escaping. The symbiote is attached to him, and as Eddie Brock is running away, a car runs into him. And Eddie realizes, he's like, I got nothing. There's nothing about me. I'm death all around me. Everything is negative. And the man is just lost. So what happens is you think something's happening with Eddie. He's coughing up blood. Obviously, the symbiote is not healing him like it once did from the previous issues. And we get to see that the young boy that, you know, called Eddie Brock's dad, his dad, goes to Eddie Brock and he says, "We have to stop our father." And that's how this book ends. And you're kind of like, what? Who is this kid? Where did he come from? Or is it another version of Eddie Brock himself? Is it a younger version of him? I don't know. But it makes for a quite interesting story. We'll see where Donny Cates takes this actual story. Phenomenal read. It's just a broken relationship between him and his father, and it's so sad. Very emotional, and I can't wait to see how Eddie Brock comes back from this. So really good book, and that was my #1 book of the week. So guys, there you have it. There is the countdown for the week. You got to compare how it compared between my most anticipated and the results. So hopefully you guys like this new series. I will tweak it as it goes along, as this is the first one. And guys, tell me in the comments below on what your top 10 comics of the week were. And as always, fans, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification button so you don't miss a single video from me. And until that next comic book review, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off, and thanks for watching. Take care, fans. Bye.